All right. Welcome back to our bonus episode. Welcome back to this journey that we're taking together,
Mhm.
reading Take the Money and Run by This Apple Pie Life. We are here today to talk about chapter 3.
What a chapter it was.
Yes, chapter three's title and the song for chapter 3 is Go Your Own Way by
By
Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac, yep.
Such a great song.
They've always been big, but does it feel like they've, almost made an even bigger comeback in the last few years? Have you gotten that vibe?
Yes, definitely. I think so too. I was thinking the same thing.
But, yeah, that's one of their more famous songs, and, what I love about this author is they picked such precise music for each chapter, and every song that they picked is just so fitting, you know?
Yeah, there's kind of a song that goes with the theme and not just the place that they're in. Like New York was obviously the place, but it also goes with like the theme of what's happening during the chapter.
Mhm.
I feel like this chapter, I really loved it, and I loved it a lot more than I think the first time
Yeah.
that I read it. Remember it being kind of like a little bit of a downer of a chapter,
Yeah.
but I think on this reread, you're able to appreciate it a
Mhm.
lot more, and when you're first reading it, you know that it's a slow burn, but it's like they're getting into away from the excitement of the start of their trip together
Yeah.
and into this kind of low period, which we talked about, like, on a road trip and in relationships and spending so much time with a person, you are gonna go through your ups and downs. So, this was one of those kind of lower points for them, but it was really important chapter, I
Yeah.
think, in their kind of the development of their relationship. So, I don't mean like a downer in a bad way, just like in the ups and downs of a trip or a relationship or a story. This is just one of the lower parts.
Yeah, this isn't a peak, this is a valley.
Yes. Yes, perfect. That's a great way to put it. So, I think it had a little bit of a melancholic vibe because they're getting on each other's nerves. Like,
Yeah.
they're getting to that point where they're just going back and forth, and Eddie's anxiety is so high, and he doesn't really know how to express that to Steve. So he's just kind of like, I don't know, getting to Steve, and
Yeah.
Steve doesn't know how to express his frustration. So he's just letting it all build up. But also, I do love this chapter because it's, like, basically the closest that they are to where I live. So I know
Oh, I
last
love that.
time when we talked about it, they went to Boston and where you live, but now they're down in, like, my neck of the woods. So, I will, we can go through, like, the places that they went and everything too, and I'll probably just, like, briefly touch on my connection to these places instead of doing kind of like a whole thing at the end. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but they start off in Atlantic City, so Atlantic City is only a couple hours north of me. I
Mhm.
feel like I've said before that I live in Maryland. So Atlantic City is in New Jersey, and it's kind of a beach town. So they're playing skee ball, which I don't know about you, but I love skee
Me
ball.
too, that's like the one arcade game I'm actually good at. I don't know, it's all in the wrist, guys.
It's so much fun. And then they're eating taffy, which saltwater taffy, I could take it or leave it. I'd
Same.
rather have
Yeah,
fudge.
me too. See? Look at this, connections. Yeah, I've never been down there, but I do like that they went to the arcades and, they were kinda hanging out and, just, close enough that they're sharing, the saltwater taffy together, and I really did like that Steve won Eddie one of those, cheap arcade mirror, I don't even know what you'd call it, but it's like a Metallica, thing etched onto a mirror.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cute, he won him a prize, and I like that he carefully, wrapped it up and put it in the back seat, and he's like, "I hope this, makes it through the journey," much like almost like their mental state at this point. You kinda hope they make it,
Yeah.
and it's a little fragile, like a mirror, symbolism.
Oh, that's a really good
Look
like
at that. I
metaphor
just pulled that
there.
right out of my top hat. But I really liked, Eddie working on the, crossword puzzle, and I
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. Like, I'm terrible at crossword puzzles, but I really like how Steve's like, "Oh, I'm not good at them. I'm an idiot," like, putting himself down, and Eddie says, "No, you're not. Just takes practice and patience." And it's this, like, little thing that
yeah.
him and Wayne have done for years, which I really liked.
I thought that was really sweet, and also it's kind of like this time where Steve is kind of rethinking a little bit what he knows about
Yeah.
Eddie and realizing, like, he's actually really smart, like, that he thought so based on his interactions so far, but he's, like, confirming it that that's not the reason he was in senior year 3 times. It's not because he wasn't smart, like, he is highly intelligent, and I love just that headcanon and that about Eddie and Fix, like, that we do know that he is super
Yes.
smart, and it wasn't him that made him not graduate, it was more like the establishment and the school and everything like that, and Steve realizing that he never would have failed because of his last name or
Exactly.
whatever that he
It's almost like he
mentions.
kind of sees that he came from a bit of a privileged life. And, I touched on this with the Maya Hawk episode, but, this was the 80s when ADHD, autism, like a lot of different things, OCD, weren't really that diagnosed as much as it is today. So, for all we know, maybe Eddie does have something, like maybe it is ADHD,
Yeah,
maybe he is over hyper. And it just kind of shows like, him kind of nervously rambling on and on. And he's almost
yeah,
doing it to relieve his anxiety, but it's getting on Steve's nerves.
yeah, he's definitely got some sort of
Yes,
neurodivergence going
something's ticking
on.
away, and, it kinda shows that Steve's not used to this, he's used to Robin, her little quirks and ticks, but not Eddie because 'cause they're in such a confined space, and he's just really, like you said, starting to peel the layers back to kinda see how he is, and I really liked how after the crossword puzzle thing happens, he says, "I'm thinking about growing a mustache," and I just love that, I love that that's just this reoccurring thing for the people who have read it, but I do love that he's like, "You know what? I'm just gonna do it to annoy you now, Eddie." Like, I loved that.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was hilarious, and there were so many, like, cute moments that were in this chapter and funny moments that kind of balanced out the other deeper, more, heavy stuff
Yeah.
too, like the mustache thing and the red vines and Twizzlers and the hitchhiker, like the other Steve,
I liked fake
fake
Steve, yeah,
Steve.
better than you. I really love that, and I love that another item was crossed off the list. They had a hitchhiker, you know?
Yep. Checked that hitchhiker off, and, I mean, obviously, Eddie did it just to check it off the list, and he was, like, taking advantage of, like, "Oh, this guy seems pretty normal. Let's pick up this hitchhiker so I can check it off the list." I do, think it's funny that he ate the Twizzlers, but he didn't cross off eating yet, so I guess
Yes.
I guess we're not gonna check that off until we eat something, more substantial in the car. But then they go to Philly, and I know well, we've both obviously been to Philly because we were together in Philly.
Yes, yes.
But in Philadelphia, I thought it was funny because they don't mention it by name, but it's the Reading Terminal Market. Did you go there when you were in
I
Philly?
think we might have passed it, and I definitely heard, my friend Andy and Brandy talk about it, but I have heard many people that are from that area, they're like, "It's a staple, like, you need to go there," you know?
Yeah, it's so cool. I've been there a few times, and I went when we were at the convention because it was right, like 2 blocks away from the convention center. So I went there for, like, lunch both days instead of, like,
Oh,
eating
that's awesome.
the convention food because it's, like, different stalls and vendors and things like that, and there is even still, like you could buy, like, raw chicken, like he was saying, but then you could buy, like, ice cream at another vendor, and they have lots of different cool things in there, so I thought that was cool, and they had a photograph, so obviously, I'm still incorporating all the sound effects that are connections to the photographs that the author has included in the fic, and they had a photograph for that of it was called Bassett's Ice Cream, and it was the ice cream shop that they went to in the
I
market.
love that Steve was like at first, like, I don't want to look at ice cream ever again. And, because of scoops, all the scoop drama. But I liked that little moment.
They rushed through DC. Again, we're still close to where I live, and, I mean, I can get to DC in less than an hour and a half, so I
You've been,
have
right?
definitely been to
Yeah.
DC.
Okay.
All over, yeah. There's lots of cool things that they could have done in DC, and I think that was another thing that bummed me out because it was like, I think Eddie would have enjoyed it, but he knew that Steve was, like, not in the mood.
And that's realistic too. It's not like a typical, oh, they're already flirting and falling in love. Like, nope. These are
Yeah,
two dudes that are friends and they're on each other's nerves. And Eddie's starting to kind of like second guess his behavior and he feels bad. And Steve, is starting to snap a little bit, but he's also feeling bad. So it's a yin and a yang and it keeps swinging back and forth.
yep. Then they go to the
Yep.
beach. So, Bethany Beach is in Delaware. There's a whole kind of like Delaware and Maryland beaches kind of connect to each other. So, I've spent more time in Ocean City, Maryland, because my grandparents lived
Hmm.
there. My grandfather actually just passed away almost a year ago now, and he lived in Ocean City my whole life. So, Bethany Beach is just like maybe 20-25 minutes north of Ocean City, not even
Now, is it like
actually.
a typical beach town?
Yeah, Bethany is like a little bit of a smaller laid back kind of area. It's not as like Ocean City has a huge boardwalk. Not as big as like Atlantic City because in Atlantic City they have the casinos and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So we don't have that in Ocean City, Maryland, but it's kind of more rides and, games and things like that in Ocean City at the boardwalk. Bethany Beach doesn't have as much of it's just like a small kind of boardwalk area, beach, some bars and restaurants and stuff. It's
Okay.
smaller, so it's more laid back. There's also, like, Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach, like, lots of, Delaware
Gotcha.
beaches, so they were in Bethany, just, standing at the ocean, which I thought that was pretty cool because I don't know that they had seen, like, the ocean before. I don't know if
Yeah,
Eddie
that's true.
it sounds like Eddie had not been out of Indiana really, so these Midwestern guys, like, seeing the
I didn't even
ocean
think about
maybe for the
that. That's
first
so
time.
cool, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the Atlantic Ocean, it's not Steve's dream of
Yeah.
the Pacific Ocean in California, but it's still a really big ocean.
And I thought it was realistic because I have gone through Delaware, and I have to say, like, the part where Eddie gets kind of really nervous going under the tunnel, and he also gets kinda nervous going over the big bridges. I'm that guy, like 100%. And tunnels, not really that big of a deal, but bridges have always made me nervous. So I kind of liked that right away. Steve's like, "Are you kidding me?" And Eddie's just crawling out of his skin. Super realistic.
Yeah, but I was gonna give a little geography lesson. So the Chesapeake Bay starts down in Virginia and comes in from the Atlantic
Okay.
Ocean, and then it goes north all the way up to where I live in Maryland, and it cuts off the eastern shore. So where the Delaware and Maryland beaches are, they're on the eastern part of, like, where the Chesapeake
Yeah.
Bay is, and there's only 2 bridges across the
Mhm.
Chesapeake Bay. So there is one bay bridge up closer to Annapolis, Maryland, which is the capital of Maryland, and DC. It's still, like, I think 3
Oh,
miles long
wow.
or something like that, that bridge, but the Bay Bridge that they're talking about is down in Virginia, and it is, like, miles long, and it's like a bridge, and then it becomes a tunnel, and then you come back up, and it's a
Oh
bridge,
my
and then you
God.
go
I
back down,
remember
and
that
it's
one.
a
You're
tunnel,
right. Yep.
and it's intense, so it is very scary. I've only been once, I
Hmm.
think, but I've also been on a cruise that started in Baltimore, and we went south down the Chesapeake Bay to get to the
Yeah.
ocean, so, like, the cruise boat, like, went past that bridge, obviously, but that's why there's tunnels too, so it's not like big ships have to go under the
True.
bridge, they can
Okay.
go over the tunnels, so it's really interesting, I think.
Look at that. I just
Um,
got a little lesson. I love that.
yeah. So I was like, I can give a little geography
Love
lesson
that.
of the Chesapeake Bay. So yeah, that bridge and tunnel, I thought it was cool that the author included
Mhm.
it. And they're fighting over the
Of
music,
course.
obviously. But I thought the choices that they kinda, like, decided on, I was like, "Yeah, that's a good vibe," like, classic
Yep.
rock, the Eagles, Creedence Clearwater Revival, like, that's CCR, love them. What was the other band they said? Oh, Leonard
It's you
Skinner.
can tell it's all music that probably, like, Eddie grew up with or Steve's parents may or may not have
Yeah,
listened to when they were a little younger, so it definitely tracks, for that time period.
definitely the music that, like, I listened to my dad
Yep.
listened to and, like, I liked to listen to because my dad listened
Mhm.
to it. Yeah, so that was good, and Eddie's writing notes in the
I love
atlas, which I
that.
thought was
Yep.
cute because there's all those just little, like, details that are kind of going to, down the road be ways that they can remember this
Yep.
trip. So that's definitely one of them, along with like the photographs that they're taking. They're still mailing the pictures to
I do
Dustin,
love that
which
they
is
found,
fun.
Harrington town and that they took the picture there. That was hilarious. And, like you said, it's the little details. And I like that at first, Steve's like, oh, why is he writing in the atlas? And then he's like, why do I care? Like, I've never used this before and I probably never will again. So it kind of shows where Steve's mind is at and then where Eddie's mind is at.
Yeah, exactly. And then it came to kind of the big conclusion of the scary moment of
Yes,
Steve walking away, and I think I really liked his
me too.
conversation
Yeah.
on the phone with Robin. That was really fun to record. Hopefully, it sounded okay.
Sounded
Like,
great.
I liked doing Robin's, like, voice because I felt like I could just kind of channel, like, how she would have been talking
That kind
to
of
him,
energy. Yeah.
like, "Come on, give him a chance," like, I think you'll like him. I liked the part where it's like, it feels like you're trying to set me up with him, but it's like, "Yeah, as a friend," like,
Yeah, I liked that
wink,
he
wink.
right away, it's almost like Robin might know something more than the boys do right now, but I really love that Steve goes to call his platonic soulmate, his sister, basically,
Yeah,
and she kinda talks him off the ledge to kinda, like, calm down and reassess, and your heart breaks a little bit for Eddie because he gets so nervous and so scared, which would make sense, because this is before cell phones, and I like almost when
yeah,
they come back, they kinda talk it through, and I liked them toasting, with the sandwich,
that was cute.
and they end up making, like, this plan, which is actually super smart for that time period,
Yes.
and what is it again? You go to the first motel or hotel in the, phone book if they get separated?
Yeah. Yeah, alphabetically, the first one. So, I think, like you said, it was super scary for Eddie. Like, I could definitely feel, like, his emotion in that moment being like, "I have to stay by the car. Like, if I leave the car, then he might leave
Yeah.
me." And the whole just having to go to the bathroom so bad that he had to walk away. Like, I've
We've all
definitely
been
been in
there,
that
yeah.
situation before. Like, when you're waiting for something, but, like, you really have to
Yep.
pee. So that was relatable, and then when he's walking back and he's kind of just making a plan in his head, like, "If he's not there, what am I gonna do? Like,
Exactly.
I've got my wallet, I've got my jacket, like, I'll be okay." Like, I think that that's also, like, a relatable
Mhm.
experience especially when you have anxiety, I think, like, trying
Think
to
ahead,
make
make
a
a plan.
plan for
Yep.
yourself. Yeah, yeah. But in the end, it ended up being a good thing because they did communicate. They decided to take breaks from each
Yep.
other every once in a while to kind of have their space. And then they made that plan for if they ever get separated, which, no spoilers, but they may have to use that
They may
plan
have to, just
sometime.
saying.
Because I mean, it would be easy to get separated from someone on a trip like this, and like you said, pre-cell phones, like what would you
Yeah.
do? So, yeah, it's funny. I don't know. It would be interesting to have a conversation with like an older than us adult who remembers the time before cell
Right?
phones. Like what did you do in this situation? Like,
That's terrifying, actually. And, it's funny because
yeah.
with our age, cell phones were kind of just really catching on when we were probably in middle school, I'd say, the old flip
Yeah,
phones.
middle school, high school, I think I got a cell phone, like a flip phone, old school phone, like freshman
Yeah,
year, and it was like so I've never really been an adult or older child with any sort of independence without having a cell phone. So it
exactly.
was like we were the first kind of like generation to have that all the time. Like, we didn't have them when we were kids, but my parents did have, like,
Yeah.
beepers. Do you remember
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
pagers, but and I do remember being out, like, at the mall and my mom getting a page and having to, like, go ask, like, if she could use the
Mhm.
phone at, like, a store in the mall, like, to return the phone call. Like, that's, like, a really weird memory that I just had, but yeah, you definitely had to have other ways to get in touch with
So
people.
I think that was like a good plan, especially for two young guys, that will need to take breaks and are going to many public places. It's kind of like they're using their heads and working as a team. And I'm glad that they, like you said, that they came to that understanding, that truce. And it kind of shows like this is kind of a step in their friendship that, I think like Steve definitely wouldn't have left him, but Eddie with his anxiety, he was
Right.
going a million miles an hour and stuff. And Steve for himself, I think he needed a third party, such as someone like Robin, to kind of spell it out for him. Like, no,
Yeah.
you're enjoying yourself. And I like when Steve is like, do you want to go like home? Like, cause I don't want to go home, but do you? And he's like, no, of course not.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they kind of are like, nope, we're going to keep doing this. This was a little bump in the road, but we're still going.
Exactly. It was a little bit of a turning point for them to get to know each other because you can't really, get to know someone on a deep level until you've kind of like seen how you're going to work through conflict with them.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
I definitely love this chapter so
So
much.
good.
I think it was my favorite so far to record.
It was
So
my favorite.
it was so fun. It was so fun talking to you about it as
Of
always.
course.
So I'm super excited to continue with this story because, oh, it just has my
Just
heart.
it's bringing back all the feels, guys, and, it's just for the people who are
Yeah.
experiencing it for the first time, we're envious because we remember when we were reading it for the first time, but this is a whole new different way, like, I actually like, there were a few things that, maybe I just don't remember or I might have missed the first time reading it, so hearing
Mhm.
Megan, you read it out loud, it's kinda like experiencing it on a whole different level, so this is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool for sure. All right.
Alright.
Well, I think that's it. And we will talk to you soon. Over and out.
Let's go watch Marmalade.
Yeah. Do it. Movie night.